Hey everybody, it's been a while. Name's Danny Quartz. I'm a cishet white guy and my pronouns are he, him, his. Before we get started, I'd like to throw a trigger warning for transphobia, NB-phobia, and non-binary erasure. Trust me, this video is painful.
So today we're going to be talking about the term non-binary and why it makes no sense, and also why it enforces strict gender roles.
I don't know why, but I have a feeling that before making her video, Misha Petrov saw Ariel Scarcella's transphobic diatribe, non-binary is confusing at best and sexist at worst, and started taking notes. This is mainly just speculation on my part, but it's a safe assumption given that many of the same points Ariel made in her video, Misha also makes in this video, including that being non-binary and being agender are the same thing, instead of agender being one of many identities under the non-binary umbrella.
So the obvious question, of course, is what even is non-binary?
I'm probably the worst person to answer this question as I'm a cis-heterosexual white dude, but non-binary refers to any gender identity that falls outside the male or female dichotomy. A few examples of some of the identities covered by non-binary include, but are not limited to, genderqueer, gender fluid, agender, bigender, and demigender, just to name a few.
And the funny thing is that each non-binary person, when you ask them this question, has a slightly different definition. Sometimes they'll tell you they can't even define it, and that it really just depends on the person, what that definition, what that really means to them.
I have a feeling that this is a lie. There probably were plenty of non-binary people who tried to define what non-binary is. It's just that every time they defined it, Misha covered her ears and went, la la la, I'm not listening.
So this used to be androgynous, or if like a girl identified as like a tomboy or something like that, right?
Yeah, being androgynous and being non-binary aren't the same. For example, there are some instances where non-binary people try to present themselves as either trans-masculine or trans-feminine, and how non-binary people present themselves doesn't invalidate their gender identities.
But now, of course, that's all changed because we have people in Gen Z who tend to be really narcissistic, and they love this term.
Riddle me this, and answer me as honestly as possible. Are you a psychologist, Misha? If you answered no, then why are you diagnosing people with personality disorders? Also, non-binary people have been around even longer than Gen Z. Two-Spirits in Native American cultures, for instance. It's just that the concept of non-binary, that is to say any gender identity that falls outside the male or female dichotomy, is becoming easier to understand as time goes on.
It's all about validating your feelings.
Misha now resorts to playing the victim because non-binary people are asking her not to misgender them.
I've always wondered this because non-binary people will say, I don't feel like a woman, I don't feel like a man. What do you mean by that? You don't feel like you have the body parts of a man, or you don't have the body parts of a woman? Maybe what you really mean is that you don't feel like you enjoy stereotypically feminine, activities or things, or stereotypically masculine activities, and that's okay. But that doesn't mean that you are non-binary.
Get used to the straw man argument where Misha conflates being non-binary and being agender as the same thing, as Misha keeps going back to it throughout the rest of the video. And again, how someone chooses to present themselves doesn't mean their identity is invalidated.
Okay, and I could easily say, I don't feel like a human. I'm an alien. And what, then I can go around telling people that they must affirm my alien identity? Now I'm alien self?
First off, you're not funny. Second, these attacks on otherkin, which, yes, there are people who actually think they're aliens, and that's perfectly okay, were already embarrassing in 2017 when Hunter Avallone made them, and they're embarrassing now. Though, I'm surprised you went with the aliens, and not the right's favorite talking point often used to discredit non-binary people's identities, the attack helicopter.
If you really cared about me, you would sit me down and say, I think you need to seek professional help, because you're not an alien. You never will be an alien, and you never were an alien. And as happy as it may make you when we, affirm your alien identity, it is not based in reality. It is a fantasy, okay? And non-binary, it's not real. You are not both genders, and you are not neither gender.
She's totally not transphobic. Why would anyone think that? She just suggested that non-binary people should go back in the closet and be ashamed of who they are. And if they don't, they should go to conversion therapy. But she's totally not transphobic.
You may not like the stereotypes associated with your gender. That's understandable. But there's a much easier solution to that than to say, okay, I'm a genderless being. I'm floating around in space, so you have to play along with my delusion to make me feel good? The truth hurts, but it's the truth, okay? You're not non-binary. I'm sorry to break it to you. You are either a man or a woman. And I know that that could be difficult to hear. I know that some people have gender dysphoria. Right now I'm talking about non-binary people who claim that because they don't like, dolls, or because they don't like trucks, because they don't like the color pink or the color blue, that means obviously they're not a man or a woman. Do you see how backwards this thinking is?
Oh goody, more straw man arguments where she suggests that being non-binary and being agender are the same thing. But there's a twist this time, as not only does Misha do this, but she also throws in some gatekeeping for good measure. You can't be trans if you don't have gender dysphoria? There are plenty of trans people who are genuinely happy thinking about their gender identity. I know Misha will bring this up later in this video, but I recommend looking up gender euphoria where trans and non-binary people are genuinely comfortable and happy thinking about their gender identities.
Like, no one cares about your truth. My truth can easily be that I am not a human. That's not the truth. It doesn't matter what my truth is. Because I'm delusional if I say that, right? There's the truth. There's no my truth. No, my truth. What if my truth, by that logic, well, their truth is that they're non-binary. My truth is that that's not a thing. So why does their truth matter more than my truth? In fact, my truth is based in reality.
No, your truth is based on outdated 19th century pseudoscience, such as eugenics, which has been used to determine who is and who isn't pure in a perfect society that wouldn't seem out of place in the Third Reich.
Another argument I hear is, but Misha, they is a pronoun, so it doesn't make sense when you say, I can't use they, right? Yes, very good, they is a pronoun, and we use it, sometimes when we're referring to someone that we don't know the gender of, right? Now, hold on a second. Just like you, I used to use this as an argument for, validating non-binary identities. Because I thought, oh, well, these bigots, I'm going to show them.
I have a feeling this is another Rage After Storm scenario where she was the textbook example of the Tumblr feminist that the far right made fun of during the height of Gamergate, but then made a huge leap into the far right after non-binary people called her out on her bigotry.
And then I brought up this example, okay? You have a new neighbor, and you don't know the gender of that neighbor, you haven't met them. You would refer to them as them, right? They are going to come over for dinner, okay? I can't wait to meet them, because you don't know their gender. But guess what? Once you see them, like 99% of the time, you will be able to identify that person's gender.
Again, a person's appearance doesn't diminish their identity. For all we know, the people you're seeing could be non-binary people who identify as either transmasculine or transfeminine.
I know that's a difficult truth for some of these people to hear. And then they get mad when people don't see them as non-binary. Well, that's because you are very clearly a man or a woman. It doesn't matter if you put on a suit if you're a woman or if you put on a dress if you're a man. Most people, most of the time, can tell your gender. Your facial hair, your height, okay? Your voice, how high or how low your voice is.
Is she making the argument that having facial hair is an inherently masculine feature? Because sometimes there are even cis women who have facial hair, and they don't view themselves as any less feminine as a result.
Or I hear, oh, but what about intersex people? Intersex is a rare medical condition. A lot of the time, these people end up choosing a gender out of the two, right? That fits best with the body parts that they do have and how they feel inside, right? That's where we go into like gender dysphoria and all of this, these problems. But it's a rare medical condition. If there was a conjoined twin born, so should we change our, vocabulary? And in bio, we should start teaching kids, hey, there's a spectrum of how many legs you can have. Because, of course, there are some conjoined twins born sometimes with 3 legs. So humans, in general, there's like a spectrum of how many legs humans have, instead of just saying, oh, humans have 2 legs, right?
I'm sorry for the inconvenience, but I'd like to make a refund. I didn't order straw man arguments with a side order of gatekeeping regarding who is and who isn't trans.
I also think a lot of girls in particular fall for this, because you see these really interesting videos on TikTok where they're saying, oh, my gender euphoria, I love it when, you guys affirm my they, them, pronoun, identity, whatever. And then these girls, they see that and they go, wow, I want to be a great ally to this non-binary individual. This makes them happy. Look, they're so happy. It's completely harmless. Oh, they're so sweet. I want to, respect them and blah, 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 blah. Respect, they're not hurting anyone.
Honestly, I've seen more harmful things on TikTok than trans non-binary people being comfortable with who they are. This includes, but is not limited to, spreading misinformation about dinosaurs, spreading misinformation about vaccines, mocking a domestic abuse survivor during that clown show of a trial for views, and helping boost Andrew Tate's popularity. Hell, this is pretty minor in comparison, but ABCDEFU, which is a song TikTok helped popularize last year, is far more harmful than trans and non-binary people existing and trying to live their lives without being harassed and murdered. Also, because she brought up that quote, I have a feeling that Misha's next point is comparing trans and non-binary people being happy with themselves with child abuse.
Listen, I understand where they're coming from, but the problem is this is hurting a lot of people, and those people are actually children. Because now children are being indoctrinated into thinking that they are neither gender or both or whatever, and then encouraged by parents, by schools, and by Big Pharma to medically transition, okay?
I hate being right. Look. A child deciding for themselves, because contrary to popular belief, children are much smarter than you give them credit for, that they don't feel comfortable with the gender they were assigned with at birth, and they want to transition, isn't child abuse, provided it's their choice. A child deciding that they feel comfortable with the gender they were assigned with at birth is also not child abuse. What is child abuse, however, is when a child doesn't feel comfortable with the gender they were assigned with at birth, and their transphobic parents refusing to let them transition.
And you're thinking, oh, but non-binary isn't trans. A lot of these non-binary people are saying that they are in fact trans.
Am I allowed to say ambiphobia is just transphobia on steroids? Also, with the exception of true scum who are trying to gatekeep trans people's identities, I don't recall anyone denying that non-binary people aren't trans. Given how they identify as a gender other than the one they were assigned at birth, non-binary people are trans.
And that they don't, get this, they don't even need gender dysphoria to be non-binary or to be trans. If you don't believe me, go on TikTok, go on YouTube, look these things up, and you will hear very clearly non-binary people telling you you don't necessarily need gender dysphoria to be non-binary or to be trans.
She's right. Go on YouTube or TikTok and look up a trans or non-binary person discussing gender euphoria. Trust me, it's far more interesting than watching Misha's transphobic mess of a video.
If you hate labels so much, if you hate gender stereotypes so much, then why are you stereotyping everything? Why are you labeling everything as boy this, girl that? For someone that hates labels, that seems to be all you do is label everything. And then force kids to, oh, you like that toy truck? You're no longer a girl. Ridiculous. So you can't just be a boy that likes to play with dolls. That doesn't exist. You must be non-binary. It's all about stereotypes. That's the problem.
I feel like I'm yelling at a wall every time she uses the straw man argument, so I'm just gonna throw this out there again. Being agender is only one of many identities that are covered under the non-binary umbrella. Stop using straw man arguments and actually listen to non-binary people when they discuss their genders.
Even with adults, there are now laws being proposed to legally force you to use their preferred pronouns.
Citation needed. I don't recall any laws that have passed in Congress that have legally said this. I do recall, however, individual states passing laws that allow medical providers to refuse to give trans and non-binary people access to healthcare, which is something that could get trans people killed.
I truly don't care if you identify as a basketball, at home or with your friends, but when you are now requiring me to affirm your gender identity as a basketball and forcing me to use your made-up pronouns that change day to day and in the workplace, or else, I have a problem with that. That's no longer live and let live.
No, you're not the victim here, Misha. You're justifying misgendering people after they tell you what their preferred pronouns are. That's not just a difference of opinion. It's bigotry that often results in trans and non-binary people getting killed.
Oh, they're not hurting anyone. Yes, they are. You are taking away people's freedom of speech. You know?
Two things. First, your freedom of speech isn't being violated just because a non-binary person tells you to use their preferred pronouns. Second, this video came out October 22nd, 2022. Almost 5 months later, Misha would release another video titled, TikTok is destroying Gen Z and should be banned. You have no right to accuse other people of being against free speech when you advocate for banning a social media platform. And I say this as someone who also doesn't like TikTok, or at the very least has mixed feelings about it.
As evil cisgender people, right? Cisgender people, it's our responsibility to make sure that their mental health gets better. No, it is not. It is not my problem that you identify as Zer or non-binary. That is a you problem, especially if your identity makes zero sense when you're being disrespectful about it.
If you're in school and you see a non-binary student being bullied because of their identity, join in on the bullying and drive that student to suicide. That's what Misha is arguing when she says she doesn't have to validate non-binary people's identities. There's a word for people like this: evil.
Personally, I have never met a non-binary person who was right-leaning.
It's almost as if non-binary people are seeing fascists passing policies that take away their basic human rights, and they want nothing to do with that. And honestly, can you really blame them?
But I have met plenty and talked to plenty of gay and transgender people who are right-leaning. And a lot of these transgender people are very much against this.
What are you trying to prove to me? That you met other trans people that are just as ambiphobic as you are?
I mean, there's literally non-binary lesbians. I don't know if you guys saw that video, but how?
Because gender identity and sexual orientation aren't the same thing. As for her argument, I'm not exactly the best person to respond to this, so in the description you can find a couple of articles that go more into depth about the subject than I ever could. One of them is a Medium article from Jules Ryan titled, "Non-Binary Lesbians Have Always Existed," and the other is a broad recognition article from Sasha Carney titled, "In Defense of Non-Binary Lesbianism."
It's just being a human. We all have masculine and feminine qualities. There are very few people who are just strictly feminine qualities and strictly masculine qualities. It's very rare to see that. You're not special.
You mean to tell me that gender is a spectrum that is far more complex than just male or female? No, I never would have guessed.
The modern day feminist is, saying to all these girls, you are going to experience so much inequality and so much suffering because of all the sexism in today's society, so they want to escape that by becoming non-binary. I mean, if they're not indoctrinated to the point of just changing their gender to a man, well, at least then they can be non-binary.
Amazing. Every word that you just said was wrong and transphobic. But she's totally not a transphobe, am I right?
And the males that claim to be non-binary, they're a lot less likely to go through these, surgeries like top surgery and stuff like that the girls go through. They just put on some makeup, wear a skirt, all things you can reverse. And the girls are the ones who are being pushed into getting surgery and having to inject testosterone into their bodies every single day to escape the sexism.
And the video ends with her treating every non-binary person as a monolith. There are several AMAB non-binary people who want to get breast implants, and there are several AFAB non-binary people who feel comfortable with their feminine features. This video was so painful that I had to cut the bits where Misha was rambling pointlessly, and even then, I'm still not sure if I can make her transphobic bio-coherent. Throughout this video, Misha displayed how evil she is by highlighting how she views non-binary people as non-human. I didn't respond to everything as it was just that painful, but she gatekeeps who is and isn't part of the LGBTQ+ community by saying non-binary people aren't trans unless they have dysphoria. She invalidates non-binary people's pronouns. She conflates being non-binary and being agender as the same thing. I didn't show them, but she uses clips from Libsub TikTok, who wants trans people to be murdered, and she treats non-binary people as a monolith. Now many of you are probably wondering, Danny, you're not non-binary, nor are you even trans. Why are you responding to this video? And you're right, I'm not non-binary, and I don't claim to be an expert on the subject. However, I made this video because the far right wants to murder trans and non-binary people. As each state passes, more and more state legislatures pass laws that refuse to give trans people access to healthcare. Having a lack of access to healthcare often results in trans people and non-binary people being killed. Trans and non-binary people need all the help they can get right now, and I'm not just going to sit on the sidelines while innocent people get killed just because of their identity. Thank you all for watching. In the description, I have a link to several non-binary folks who are worth supporting, including my friend Phoenix and their response to Ariel Scarcella, as well as crowdfunding sources provided by my other friend, Some Random Geek. Until next time, I'm Danny Quartz, and I really hope the next video I respond to will be less painful to sit through than this.